All right, let's talk about CNN. There is a pretty major defamation lawsuit going on right now that actually is going to trial in the state of Florida, and haven't seen a lot of coverage on it. And considering how CNN could face a absolutely massive judgment and liability from this jury trial, it is certainly worth covering, as it may be the biggest story in the space since the Fox News Smartmatic settlement that we'll all recall. So let's put this up there on the screen. A Florida jury will decide if CNN defamed a security contractor. So the details, everybody stick with me, goes back to 2021 from the U.S. Afghan withdrawal. So basically, in November of 2021, CNN ran a 5-minute long lawsuit, a segment about private contractors who were charging large sums of money to evacuate Afghans desperate to flee the country. This was the direct quote from Jake Tapper. CNN's Alexander Marquardt has discovered Afghans trying to get out of the country face a black market full of promises, demands of exorbitant fees, and no guarantee of safety or success. The only security contractor mentioned is this man, Navy veteran Zachary Young, whose operation had actually been paid by several large companies, including Audible, Bloomberg, etc. At one point in the segment, his face was shown on screen above the graphic referencing black markets and exorbitant fees. So that is the core of Young's defamation lawsuit. The reason why, in particular, that he's able to, quote unquote, at least allege damages is because his business suffered significant monetary damage as a result of this CNN report. Now, we should note that actually CNN did issue a correction. About 4 months later, Jake Tapper and CNN read an on-air correction to the story. And actually, some of the emails that have now been released show that inside of CNN, there was concern that this did not meet editorial standard. Nonetheless, CNN still alleges that it is not liable for defamation, as they issued a correction some 4 months later. However, it was enough to reach the standard for a judge to allow this to go through. Now, we should say that that is extraordinary already, because it is extremely rare for a news organization to be able to even, to not have the case thrown out in terms of scrutiny. The judge, Florida Circuit Judge William Henry, ruled that Young's activities were legal, preventing the network from suggesting to jurors that he has been engaging in illicit activity. That's really important, because if the jury determines the term black market refers to illegal activity, CNN would be found to have, quote, knowingly published false information, as network journalists acknowledged their reporting did not find evidence that Young had committed a crime. So, on the merits, Krystal, they are facing some serious issues. And sociologically, when we think about the jury pool and all of that, they could have a real problem on their hands with this case.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the other thing is what comes out in this case as well is going to be, it already is very unflattering, because some of the emails from producers behind the scenes acknowledge that the segment is kind of sloppy, kind of sensationalist. They also acknowledge, like, they think this guy who's now suing them is like a shitty person, and they have this sort of like personal animus against them that also against him. Not that they knew him personally, but they thought he was sort of like sketchy and sleazy. And so that could have animated some of the editorial direction of the segment as well. And so their star anchor, Jake Tapper, is involved. He's having to be deposed. What is going to come out in discovery? What's going to come out in the trial? Even if they ultimately prevail here, just getting that little window into the behind the scenes of how CNN actually operates and actually puts together these stories could in and of itself be at the least embarrassing to them, who like to hold themselves out as this like gold standard of journalism. And clearly in this particular instance, they certainly fell short of that.
Oh, there's no question about it, with the emails in particular. And I wanted to note too that really where I think CNN is screwed is on that legal standard about, look, we all know black market means illegal. Can we all be honest? Like, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
So on the standard itself that they narrowly have to rule, it's bad. But what's really important to me is how these jurors, these potential jurors, how we're revealing here, how you really can see where the actual editorial bias of CNN over years is now going to screw them with the jury poll. So, for example, the first prospective juror, when asked if they could be fair, says, "I dislike the media, especially CNN." Another says, "I'm not a fan of CNN," but about a dozen in between said they had no issue. Another potential juror said he believes media outlets think they can say anything about anyone and pretend to be the victim when called out. And another said he could be impartial, but added, "Nothing negative against CNN. I just don't see the way things that they do." Another, my personal favorite, says, "It's killing me sitting here. I'm hyperactive and I smoke, plus I have to pee." Who is, I think, all of them.
Relatable.
Yeah, very relatable.
That would be the jury of the peers. Yes.
Yeah, that's your jury of peers, folks. What I do think is interesting here is all the jurors were picked. Apparently, CNN's legal team picked off by asking prospective jurors if they'd ever served in the military. That was one of the ways that they were trying to screen people. They also said, "How many of you believe CNN creates fake news?" 6 prospective jurors raised their hands. Most, though, do insist they can be impartial. When jurors are amazing. I know you served on a jury. You're much more of a believer, I think, in jury trial than I am. Just in terms of your ability to get.
I saw people take it very seriously.
I know, Krystal, but how can a person with a straight face say, "I believe CNN creates fake news, but I can be impartial"? Like, come on, what are we doing here? All right, look, I'm fine. I want CNN to be screwed personally, but
I don't know. I think Fox
crazy.
News creates fake news, and I think CNN creates fake news.
I agree
could
with
be impartial on this.
Yeah, but if somebody
evaluate the facts of this particular case and decide whether in this particular instance,
maybe you're right. Yeah, I that's a fair point. I mean, again, on the legal standard, I think they're screwed. I just don't see a single way that they could get around it because they literally put his face over the words black market.
Yeah.
And they did destroy his business.
That is one of the things that, like, when you're first learning on-air requirements, journalist requirements, they teach you is like, you cannot picture someone while you're saying something if that thing that you're saying is not about that person and is not accurate. So it is pretty basic. On the other hand, I just know that CNN is going to have the best lawyers money can buy.
Yep.
And the standard for defamation is quite high. So I wouldn't bet against them prevailing in the case. I think it's possible that they do, that they can, prove enough like just incompetence versus some sort of intent here to be able to slide. I think that's entirely possible, but the amounts will be significant, but they'll be fine. This is a gigantic company and conglomerate, et cetera. I think probably more important is just what is learned in the context of this trial, whether it's embarrassing to the company itself, embarrassing to Jake Tapper, embarrassing to his team, et cetera. Nobody wants that peek behind the curtain. It's going to be messy seeing how this sausage is made.
That's the amazing part is one of the hardest things that you have to do is prove damages. And so he has to prove that they wanted to harm his reputation. But when they have emails saying that they think he's a shitty person and that they acknowledge that the story is, quote, "a mess, flawed, full of holes, incomplete, 80% emotion, 20% observed fact," we're getting to the place where, it's on a knife's edge as to whether you can even argue any of this. And yeah, you just said, I mean, if Jake Tapper and his team are found liable here, that will be a massive blow to them. It also will, to show everybody else and others, including us in our business. I just don't understand how this ever got to air. Because, you and I both know the standard for saying somebody is doing something illegal or even sketchy is so high. Also, this guy, not a public figure. That's another one, which is very important.
True.
Look, we can talk about Elon, Mark Zuckerberg, all these other people. All of them fall under the public figure standard. This is just some random dude who's involved in business or whatever, private military contractor. To name him, the newsworthy standard of that has to be very high.
True.
And you have to have dead to rights, evidence that this is going on. I mean, I think clearly what happened is the reporter didn't like him, and the editorial team also found it, I guess, gross that people were charging to get people out of Afghanistan. And they were like, screw him, we're going to go after him. But that is the exact reason you're supposed to have editorial standards, to make sure something like this never happens. So pretty extraordinary nonetheless. The jury did eventually get picked, and they're going to trial. So it could be like Fox, where they just settle before that. If I have CNN's legal team looking at this, you might need to pay. Like, you might need to pay big time to make this go away, because Florida jury, I need to go and check how exactly it works with the damages and everything. But if I recall, the Gawker case also was out of Florida. And if we'll remember, that case basically shut down the entire website forever. I'm not saying that's going to happen to CNN, but nobody wants to pay half a billion, $750 million out, all because your reporters did a stupid job. But they may decide that is that's the best course of action, just to try and not set a standard. But that's why it's risky when you go to trial. A jury trial like this, absolutely anything could happen.
Yeah, well, the last thing I'll note is reportedly part of why ABC/Disney decided to settle with Trump on that. He was suing them for defamation. George Stephanopoulos was involved specifically over the way he characterized the E. Jean Carroll civil lawsuit, saying that he was found liable for rape instead of saying liable for sexual assault. Part of the reason they settled is because they were worried about a Florida jury.
Yep.
And so, here you've got the Florida jury, and Florida, given how favorable they are to Donald Trump and how much they've shifted right and how much antipathy I'm sure there is towards CNN in the state, that may create a bit of an uphill battle for them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them ultimately be like, we really don't want to go through this. How much money do you need to make this go away?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. It was great to be back. Hopefully we're going to be back in studio we'll be back in studio on Thursday if the snow and the road conditions allow. I can just tell you, I'm looking outside. There's got to be 6-7 inches of snow on the streets still. So it's bad. It's bad out here. Washington, D.C. needs to wake up and learn how to actually deal with this. But we'll do our best to get there in the studio. And it's great to be back, Krystal.
It's great to have you back. It's not the same without you here, Saagar. And there were all kinds of things I wanted to hear what you had to say about them. So I'm glad to have you back.
It hurt to be quiet, but those were the orders that I got, and I did comply. So there we go. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.